pulling out all of the stops for, and I might occasionally let them have a treat coming in for that. Or let's say you have a dog that's like tennis ball driven, decide you're going to practice a couple and have a tennis ball already on you in a pocket, and they come in and you bounce a tennis ball or you toss the tennis ball and they're like, this game just keeps getting better, whatever they like or something like that. And it may change, especially the younger they are, they are still going through lots of changes. And but this one's a super important one. Did anybody have any problems with the recall? Okay. So we have so many things. We got pictures out of the way. Next week, since it's Halloween, we're not going to be meeting. So we'll skip next week, and then the week after that, it will be our final week. And so I'm going to have up here at the table a sign-in sheet for certificates for 2 weeks. So the first column has the handler's name, so it can be John and Betty Smith, or it can be the Smith family, or however you want it. And then your dog's name, which I wrote down, but I might not have it spelled the way you have it spelled or whatever. And then down at the bottom is a place for comments. If you have any comments that you want to add, you don't have to sign your name to them, but it helps me plan curriculum and hear from you guys what it is that you want, what was helpful, what would be helpful, if there's something I didn't cover. So if you have any comments to add, or if you're like, no, I wouldn't change anything, you can say keep class as is, and that tells me that, at least to you, it's just what you were looking for. So this week we're going to work on the sit-stay, because in 2 weeks, I'm going to stop probably at Taco Bell, because that's the easiest one on my way up, and pick up a taco. And that's when we'll walk it around the room twice, and they'll have to resist going after the taco, even the baby ones. You know what? I have never lost food. And I used to, when I taught the classes in Walled Lake, there was a custodian that was really a dog guy, and he would come down to the class at the last night of class, and he started trying to bet a Little Caesars pizza if any of the dogs went for the taco that I walked around, or hamburger or whatever it was, that he'd buy me a pizza, and if not, or I'd have to buy him a pizza, and if they didn't go after it, he'd buy me a pizza. And after about 3 pizzas, he's like, yeah, anyway, never mind on the pizza thing. But it's really amazing. And like I said, I started talking about that first night of class, because a lot of times when you hear me say something on that first night of class of that kind of magnitude, like even this week, you're like, they're not going to do that. I don't know what she thinks is going to happen between now and next week. They're not going to do it until you see them, till I walk around 2 times around. And it's funny because some of them will go and they watch it go by like they can't believe a taco just walked in front of them. And then some of them are like, I can't look. If I look, I'm going for it. And so they have to look away. It's really kind of funny. Especially for those of you that haven't yet transitioned, or maybe are about to transition. But for anybody, this website is a little bit of a misnomer too, because they do cat food evaluations and assessment, as well as dog food. But the name of the website, it's www.dogfoodadvisor, all one word, .com. One of the things that I like about Dog Food Advisor is they're not tied to any particular food line, or they're not just promoting like the super expensive dog foods. So an example of one of some of their 4-star dog foods. Okay, so let's do the sit stays. Now, in doing this, in particular, the younger, like this is true for almost any of our exercises, the younger our puppy is, the more flexibility we're going to let them have in terms of doing a good performance for whatever behavior we're doing. So we're going to pretend this chair is my dog, and his neck goes the opposite way that it would normally go, but we're just going to expand our minds here a little bit. So if this was, okay, so there we have a dog in a sit-stay. When a dog is in a sit-stay, they can't break the sit-stay by moving backwards unless they're in the sit, unless they stand up, take a couple steps, and go back in a sit. They have to stand up to be able to move out of the sit-stay. The same is true for laterally. So let's say your dog's in a sit-stay like this. For them to move laterally, they can't just slide like this. They're not designed that. They have to stand up, take a lateral step, and go back into a sit-stay. So knowing that anatomy lesson, that helps us greatly. So if we can keep our dog or our puppy in a sit-stay, we can almost guarantee the sit is the part that guarantees the stay for us. So we're going to imagine this, for the time being, we were imagining it's a dog. Now we're going to imagine it's a car, and I have just backed it into a one-car garage. So if this car was in a one-car garage, I don't have to worry about the back. I don't have to worry about the sides, because the only way the car can move is by going forward out of the garage. So I put it back in the garage. Now, the one thing that can make it stop is if I bring the garage door down in front of it. And now the car, it would have to be a Tesla, I guess, to move on its own. The car can't move. So we're going to kind of do something like that. So now we're back to imagining that it's my dog. So I start with my dog on whatever side. I usually work them on, left side or right side. I'll just do the left side for this. So I'll start off with my dog or my puppy, and I say, Sparky, sit, and get Sparky in a sit. And then I do a hand signal and a verbal command, because I don't mind for this doubling up. So the hand signal is just kind of a sweep towards their face. Back decades ago, they used to say, touch your dog's nose, which I always thought was more than a little intrusive. So I don't think you need to touch your dog's nose. But the act of bringing your hand towards them kind of does what we would think. It kind of pulls them back, and it puts their rump a little deeper into a sit. Rather than them being on their tippy toes and ready to break the sit, it puts them back in their sit. So if you want to do that hand signal, you can do it. If you want to skip it, you're welcome to skip it. So it'll be Sparky, sit, stay, and then I pivot right out in front. So now I have become the garage door, and the dog is like, well, what's this? What are we doing? And they're just looking up at me. I'm only going to be out here literally for 2 seconds. 1,000, 2, 1,000. Then I'm going to move back to where I started, and ideally, my dog here, Sparky the gray chair, hasn't moved at all. And then when I come back here, I pause for 1 second, and then I praise my dog. And your puppy, while you're standing in front of them, and maybe even when you come back, it might not be true with a more mature dog if you've practiced the stays, but your puppy is going to be looking at you like, well, what was that? Because they're used to, up until this point, every command that we've given them has some movement involved. Sit has a little movement. Come has a lot, oops, pound on the microphone. Come has a lot of movement. Heeling has a lot of movement. And so I just ask them to do something in my assertive voice, and they're like, I can't do anything because you've got my exit blocked. And so they're going to look up at you kind of confused. And so then you return back over here, you praise them, and they're like, okay, I'm still confused because I don't know what you're happy about because I wasn't able to do anything. So after I've gotten the first one, I go back, stay, or sit, stay. I pivot out in front, I do another 1,000, 2, 1,000, I come back and I praise them again, and then you start seeing their expression change, and they're like, could it possibly be that just sitting there was the thing you were going for? Because that's the only thing I can think of. And that's the way we're trying to get it across to them. We do a couple in the beginning just to teach them. Does anybody, do I have a volunteer that I can borrow other than the chair? Pistachio? Okay. I'm going to borrow him, and then I'll let you do it. All I can think when I look at her laying like that is the animal abuse commercials where it's the arms of the angels and... You know, the funny thing, she usually goes like this with her paws. Pistachio. Ready? Sit. Good boy. Nope, sit. Stay. So, we sometimes have, nope, sit. Sit. Not on me, per se. Nope. Sit. So, that's all right. Sit. Good boy. No, now we're laying down. Ready? Sit. Stay. Nope. Sit. Stay. Good boy. Good boy. So even if we're like just got it under the wire, I wanted to get one. So now we're going to see if the second one's any better. Pistachio. Ready? Sit. Sit. Stay. Nope. Sit. Stay. Good boy. Good boy. So now he's starting to wonder if this was an intentional act, and so the practice is going to tell him that. One of the things that I want to say, remember last week when we were practicing the recall and I was saying, oh, I keep hitting the microphone. Oh, I'm left-handed, I got to be right-handed. Okay. When I said they're motion activated and if we back away from them, they're just going to go. So since we're used to, and I'm just borrowing him standing here, I don't need his leash, but we've been doing healing, and so when he's next to me, if I take a big physical step out in front of him, he's going to be like, well, we're healing, and he's going to walk with me. So that's why when I sit, good boy. Nope. Sit. Good boy. Nope. Good boy. And this sometimes requires a fair amount of patience. Stay. And so when I come out in front of him, I try to have my lower body sit, be as low movement as I can, because if I make a big movement like that, it just triggers his movement, and that's opposite of what we want for a stay. So it's Sparky sit, left side or right side, stay, kind of slide out without much movement, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, back, praise him, and then let him have a break. So, and like I said, I really try not to correct them firmly and stuff like this because they're already, I feel, unsure about what we're asking, and I don't want them to get more unsure. So I kind of just use patience and reposition, patience and reposition, patience, reposition, see if I can get, even if you get out here and you're like 1,000 and you go back, you can praise for that. So we're starting at a manageable place, whatever that happens to be for whatever dog, and then we're just going to stretch from there. Questions on the sit stay? Okay, so you can practice, you can move, you can practice where you're at if you want. If you're looking for something slightly less distracting, at least a couple people could go down that hallway. If somebody's got a dog that has a hard time holding the sit on the slippery floor, you can do the mats over there. There's a mat over there. And see if you can get maybe a couple sit stays, and then I'll be around if you need help. Just raise your hand and I'll come on over and we can go from there. I'm looking for the discarded tire that's like wrapped around her, so because she's sleeping down in the tire. She's just... Do you use like a release command word? When I come back, yes, I say okay or whatever.
Okay, because that's what we've been practicing with at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I've been stepping back to the side, he's still like...
Or sometimes you can just praise them. It just, the praise usually ends up meaning to them work is done. Okay. So you can do either one. So it was a good question. The question was, when we're done, do you have a release word, or what do you do to let them know they're done working? So you can do either one. You can do a release word, which can be from here on out, your word that says we're done working. And I used to do, because this was the traditional word that you used at the time, okay, but I would say pick something that's a little different than and maybe pick something like release or finished or something like that, because I found that I ended almost every phone conversation by saying, okay, and so my dogs would be laying there and I'd say, okay, finish up the conversation, they'd jump up and they're like, were we working? Because I didn't know we were working. So sometimes I'll use release, or you can just praise them and the praise tells them they're done. So, was everybody able to get a couple? Did you see much more weird look on your face the first time, and then did it come down? Right. It's so funny because they're like, if that's what works for you, that I just sit here, I think I can swing that. So a lot of times people believe when they're doing the sit-stay that they want to add distance fairly quickly. So I'm not even going to borrow, I'm going to have you holding him. So, but let's say I had him on a sit stay, so I gave him the command stay, and then I got this far from him. With him being young, I would not increase the distance much at all. And almost every dog, especially a young dog, can only have their handler, and he's fine with me being this far away because I'm not his person. But if we switched and I was holding him and you were out this far, he might be like, no, don't go that far. And when they feel like, no, you've gone too far, they don't have, as a young dog, they don't have the self-control to hold themselves to their spot, and they'll just break it and come towards you. So I don't extend the distance that quickly at all. I extend that on the slow side. And back in the day, they used to say, like if I did this distance and we consistently broke it, you should go back to cutting that distance in half and then work from that halfway point and go from there. So that could be something to think about. Another way to stretch this is by either adding some time to it, so adding 3 or 4 more seconds or something like that. Or sometimes you can, if you had another person in the house, you've got your dog on a sit stay, you could have the other person kind of come walk in the room, not look at the dog, not address the dog, but walk by, and then the dog understands it's like, I can't go with them. And so we start bringing in the slow distractions. And you could do those maybe over the winter, and then maybe by spring they're old enough to try some outside distractions. So I would add distractions and I would add time sooner than I would add distance. So one of the places that I would, I think from a practicality standpoint, that I would work on having them stay would be if they're in my car. So let's say with the nice weather, you might say, let's go to a cider mill and we'll take the puppy with us. And so you're in the car and you get to the cider mill, and a lot of times people will just open that door right up, not thinking that the dog is going to be like, oh, there's my chance, shoom, and out I go. So if you have a young and or impulsive dog in any way, what I do is I open the car door just enough to get my hand in, and hopefully if I don't have a leash on him, I'll clip the leash on him, or if the leash has been on, then I reach in and get the leash. Then I open the door full open. And if I feel my dog or puppy start to make a dash for the big break coming their way, I'll correct them and I'll say, stay. And Sasha was like, yee. But I'll say, stay, and hold them there, and then I'll say release or free or something like that, that they can jump down, because I want to have them have good manners, because so many times a dog gets out in a parking lot of somewhere because you've gone somewhere, and sadly, if they're in a parking lot somewhere, that probably means there's a major road nearby, and that's not where we want them getting loose. So I want to take about 5 or 10, and I want to revisit healing just for a bit because I want to add the last little bit of polish. And the last little bit of polish is to have them sit at the beginning of the heel and sit when we stop. If you've seen, has anybody seen dogs walking around town where they do that? It looks it looks nice, but it also just kind of brings a structure to the walks and stuff like that. So I want to talk about how to add that at the beginning. So, I haven't borrowed you yet. Do you want to come out and be in the middle of the room? Yes, yes I do. Okay, so the one at the beginning, so do you walk on the right side? Okay. So you have your collar on correctly, which I imagine you already knew. So if we start at the beginning, sit. Very good. That one's easy. So then I start healing. Now, if you notice, even when we're in the correct position, which is the shoulders coming up here, kind of lined up with the seam of my pants, ready? Heel. That we can't see, he can't see what my body is doing because I'm behind his eyes. Oh yeah, that's right, you tell him. So if I come to a stop real quick, sit. Sit. So if I come to a stop real quick, plus he's not paying attention, but sit. He's kind of out here, and he's like, oh, I don't know, I just ended up here. Because he had no idea I was coming to a stop because, ready? So, because he couldn't see me coming. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and telegraph to him, that's a good boy, that I'm coming to a stop. Whoops. And then we'll see. Sit. Sit. So when I come to a halt much slower, he has no reason, when I catch him off guard, what they do, whether it's to the left or the right, they're like, what was that for? And they turn to face me because they're like, you were very unpredictable. I didn't know what you were going to do. When I let them know, ready? Come on. Heel. Heel. When I let them know by kind of telegraphing, sit. Heel. Sit. Then we don't have the need to turn and face me. And if they turn and face me, it's kind of like I have this much dog, and if I want to go forward, how can I go forward when I have dog crossways in front of me? So I want them to end up by my side, if that makes sense. So, as we're practicing our healing, at some point I'm going to say, come to a halt. You guys don't have to say halt to your dog. That's just an instruction to you guys as handlers. So you'll be healing. I'll say halt. I want you to take however many steps you want. Usually I recommend at least 3, and I really come to a halt slowly so that I telegraph to my dog that we're about to do something different. And then when they come to a stop, I ask them to sit, and hopefully they end up sitting next to me. What happens again is if we're walking like this and I say halt and you just stop trying to be very good, the dog centrifugally just ends up in the front like that, and they're like, what are you doing there? So I'm going to let you pick a time. I'm going to let each handler pick a time when you feel there's low distractions to stop. Good boy. So we're not going to add the stand this. This is just going to be the healing, okay? So he'll be back by your side, and then that lets you start again, and you say heal, and you start walking again, okay? So I'm going to let those of you on the floor decide when to bring yourself and your dog to a stop. So we're just going to start off with them sitting on whatever side. When you have them sitting, then you can say heel. I like to do the dog's name first because when I say the dog's name first, especially if I say it in my happy voice, my dog is like looking like that and I say Sparky heel and they're like, oh, and when they look up and I move, they automatically move with me. So I like to do that. So I do a happy Sparky heel and then take off. So go ahead whenever you're ready. So if he is still doing a bunch of pulling, I would try the loosen and quick snap because you got the upper body strength to do that. Yeah, it's just kind of you're really trying to deliver that snap down the leash so that he just feels it on the collar, so it's like boom, something quick like that. You sound so tough. Cool, and then when he falls in line like that, I try to make a point of getting it to loosen so that he gets the freedom, and then when he pulls, it's like, oh, we're back on nib details. It works, doesn't it? It does. Success just works.
There's a little focus problem.
Go ahead and loop around and go maybe back behind Twix. I would say make a little loop and then maybe you're behind Twix. He's rear wheel driven. He's got his equipment still. I know, I love you too. Okay, let's try bringing him to a halt again, a couple steps and ask him to sit. There you go. Miss Twix, look at you showing off. Awesome, perfect. Okay, you guys can head back to your spots too. So if you feel like adding that and having that be part of your walk, you can have that be part of your walk. One of the advantages is the more elements we put into the healing or their walk, the more that becomes not only a physical exercise to them, but a mental exercise, and it helps diminish all the heebie-jeebie puppy things going on and stuff like that. So just as a reminder, next week, Halloween, we won't be meeting. So we're going to meet, the last class will be 2 weeks from now. And so we're going to do the lay down, if they don't already know that. We're going to talk a little bit about how to know if we're getting appropriate socialization or not appropriate socialization. We're going to do our nail trimming, nail clipping exercise. And I believe, according to my sheet, that's all we have left to do. So before you go, don't forget to come up and sign in for the certificate for 2 weeks from now, and then we'll go from there. Good job.